What's up, Family Liberty? Drill Sergeant, aka Admin Doug here, and today I want to talk about DEI, but we'll get to that. More importantly, it's the last day of Black History Month. So I decided why not talk about Charles Quentin Brown Jr. He was the United States Air Force general who served as the 21st chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staffs from 2023 to 2025. But before that, he served as the Chief of Staff for the Air Force in 2020 to 2023. Brown entered the Air Force in 1984 and served as a fighter pilot, where he's logged over 3,000 flight hours, including 130 hours in combat. He's commanded the Pacific Air Forces, U.S. Air Force's Central Command, 31st Fighter Wing, 8th Fighter Wing, U.S. Air Force Weapons School, and 78th Fighter Squadron. He's also served as Deputy Commander for the U.S. Central Command. Now, Pillsbury Doughboy president dumped and dipped in orange number 5 before being baked to completion, nominated General Brown as the first African American to lead a branch of the United States Armed Forces. He was later nominated by President Joe Biden to become the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staffs, and abruptly dismissed by the same Pillsbury Doughboy president dipped in the same orange sauce, February 21st, 2025, because he's a DEI hire. So let me get this straight, family. The president who nominated you is the president who fired you because he said you were nominated as a DEI hire. Well, I'm wondering who to blame at that point. You're telling me that you didn't nominate someone who was worthy of the position? Whose fault is that? No big deal. Listen, we give General Charles Q. Brown Jr. his props for all of his service. And I figure that it's a good time to talk about peace, man. Peace. See, in the Vietnam War, that was the only time that I've ever seen or heard of DEI being racist. Would you like to know the story? I thought you would. You see, when Jimi Hendrix was a private in this United States Army, turns out he wasn't a good one. And I don't mean that as a slight. He's a much better guitar player. During the period of the Vietnam War, well over half of the African American draft registrants were found ineligible for military service. The reason for that is because their education was worse, their finances were worse, their family lives were worse, their health was worse. There was no help. They went to segregated schools and learned the least. They were not accepted into universities and college and learned the least. So they were the least qualified because they didn't even have the education or the training to fight. But the funny thing was, that DEI, fam, that DEI took on a whole new meaning when Project 100,000 helped dramatically increase the U.S. troop presence in Vietnam from 23,000 in 1965 to 465,000 2 years later. Well, how did they do that? Well, let's see. You see, the number of African American troops that were drafted by lowering the education standards of the draft. An estimated 40% of the 246,000 draftees of Project 100,000 were black. A total of 300,000 African Americans served in Vietnam. Thanks to DEI. Because you couldn't educate them, because you didn't care how they lived on the outside. They weren't even eligible for your army, but they were good enough to go die. So now when you say you're getting rid of the generals who are accomplished, the females, the women who are accomplished, the black people who are accomplished because of DEI, I find myself chuckling how easily this same government was willing to use DEI to get them killed. If you made it all the way to the end without giving up, peace.
And now it's time for the throw punch!